Welcome to Naked with Dr. Money. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, and I'm so happy you're here to join me again on Chapter 24. Last year, I had the big idea that I wanted to launch a vlog where I shared a little bit of my personal journey as the CEO of ZenoVerse Wellness Group. It's a fun journey. Whenever you're starting a startup, the CEO's job is to set the vision, determine what type of capacity is necessary to execute, and more importantly, find the capital. And any of you that have been on the journey of raising capital, it's always a fun and interesting journey. I liken it to kissing frogs, right? You have to kiss a bunch of frogs before you find your prince. Pucker up. So along that journey, I found a way to keep myself going, to humor myself, because guess what? I expect to be in this role for a long time. So this is just kind of part of the job description. So it's one of those that you just have to keep doing. And eventually you get great at it, right? Practice, practice, practice makes perfect. So I've been preparing. And so now it's about executing. But anyway, the thing that I love about my vlog is I get to talk about one of the topics that I have definitely invested a lot of time and energy around, and that's thought leadership around mindset. And it was last year actually that I was thinking about, and I think I had a little bit of an aha moment where I realized that I had been using Maslow's hierarchy as a bit of a reference point. And what I noticed is the hierarchy is triangular, and along the bottom where you usually begin is where you're focused on basic needs being met, right? And so I always remind myself as I advanced, if I kind of fell back down, that I'm like back to kind of basic needs being met. But at the top of the triangle is where you begin to focus on self-actualization. And I guess the premise is that once you've taken care of the various levels preceding self-actualization, that is the highest level of development. Well, it really occurred to me last year that really, if we began and if we inverted the triangle and began working on mindset at the beginning, that mindset would allow you to produce everything else that you want to produce along your journey. What I mean by that is we hear all of these little sayings like the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. It's the same glass with the same amount of liquid. The only difference is how you choose to perceive that glass, which is the same thing about life and your life experiences. Your mindset determines if you see that glass as half full or half empty. Well, today, as part of chapter 24, I'm excited. I have my first guest of the year. I'm going to introduce you to Tiffany Gorman, who I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with in a few moons. But Tiffany and I were first introduced by her mom and dad, her parents, and namely her mom has been a great friend and mentor and colleague along my own journey. So I like to say that I got an opportunity to watch Tiffany as she's evolved into her own life and family and motherhood as well. And it's just been a nice extension of that journey. But before I bring Tiffany on, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what she's up to. Because the last time I was checking in with Tiff, she was involved with her business as a chef. And of late, she has really, she describes herself as a birth educator, a doula, and a poet. And I'm sure some good tastes are woven into that as well. But she defines herself as a child development specialist, and her involvement in supporting and healing families. And of course, I have my own passions and thoughts around that process. I've often shared, the intention I set around the womb experience with bringing forth my own child. And then I know that there's a lot of conversations about how do we safely and effectively bring forth new life in such a way that it's a natural, it's a wonderful experience, but also it sets the course for not only the new baby, but also for the parents who are the reason for that new life coming to join us. So without any further ado, I want to bring on Tiffany.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate this. It's a great way to start the new year.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been so excited. I was so excited when you said yes. Looking forward to the day. So glad that you can join me. And I already got the news flash. We're not going to talk about any weather, even though weather is an interesting thing.
You're going to leave weather out of the conversation.
Talk about wanting to keep our motivations high. But tell me, the last time I had caught up with your mom, you had were focused on your career as a chef. And since then, you've pivoted a little bit more into early child development. What inspired you to make that change? And tell us a little bit about, what you find yourself, not only your experiences, but, what are you seeing?
Sure. So my daughter must have been around 4 years old, and I actually was fired from a job, and I had been asking God to place me someplace else. I said, I don't want to be here anymore, but I wasn't specific. So he was like, great. And I got fired. So I wasn't there anymore.
Be careful what you ask for.
To be specific. So I went to my daughter's preschool and I did a demonstration for her classmates on making pretzels. And so I had them playing with the dough, making the pretzel shapes. And I was like, this is fun. I've always liked little people. Like, I think I could work with little people. And that was in maybe June of 2011. And by September, I was enrolled at City College of Chicago in their child development department. And from there, just went straight forward. Started working in a daycare as an infant teacher. Did that for several years, 5 years or so, left, became a nanny. And as I was a nanny, I had the time to go to graduate school and get my master's in early childhood development. So it's definitely been like, a 10-year journey to get here. But it's a journey that when I look back on my life makes so much sense because I have been taking care of babies my entire life. I've always been around babies. I've always babysat. I've always had somebody on my hip, somebody on my arm. So it just makes sense that this is what I'm doing now.
That's so interesting because it's a perfect segue into our conversation. When I invite guests on, what I like to talk about is mindset, and kind of what is it that they believe, meaning is mindset a product of nature or how they're nurtured? And when they first realized that they had a particular mindset. So let me present that question to you. It's interesting because you gave a great foundation. And that's what I think is some of the things that we end up finding the most joy from. We probably had signs along our journey that we were drawn to those things. But for whatever reason, we may or may not listen to the signs or thought that could be part of what we could do. So tell us about your mindset. When did you first realize that you had a particular mindset? And do you think it's the product of your nature or nurture or a little bit of both?
So I think, I wasn't really consciously aware of my mindset through my youth, high school years, unlike my daughter, right? Like my daughter is very aware of how she's thinking, what her plans are, what her goals are. I'm an 80s kid. I was here. I was on Earth. I was living. I went to college because you're supposed to. I didn't really know what I was gonna do with this. I went. And it was, I think probably by the time my senior year rolled around, I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? I've always loved cooking. I've been cooking my whole life. I'll go to culinary school. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll go to culinary school. I was able to see myself doing the things that I wanted to do because I wanted to do them, and not because there was a set, picture of what my life should be. And because my parents are so supportive and they were just like, whatever you want, sometimes that can be too broad, right? Like sometimes like, I don't know. I don't know what I want. And so it's taken me a long time to really understand that I can truly control my destiny, and that there will always be outside situations, but they don't necessarily determine my outcome. Right. For a long time, I very much believe that whatever happens on the outside definitely determines what happens to me, right? I went up for a job position. The executive chef said, we're not even interested in interviewing you. He blocked me from being able to do XYZ. Right. That was my thought. And then as really, I think probably motherhood made me really realize like, nah, all of this is really in your own hands. And so now it's like, oh, you want me to do XYZ? I don't think I want to. And I'm going to say no. And I'm not going to feel bad. So I think it's definitely a mixture of both, right? Like I'm very much into epigenetics. So I love the concept and the idea that your environment can change the actual DNA in your body. You can turn on or off genomes based on what's going on around you. So nurture is for sure important, right? But then also nature does play a big role in how things are, because you inherit certain traits based on your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, past traumas, past expertise, past exhilarations, past all of that stuff is also in your DNA. So it's a matter of, do I want to trigger this genome? Do I want, I know the stories of my family. Do I want this negative aspect to be something that I trigger? Or do I want to look at the resilience of my family and help trigger that? And so I think having that understanding of that time and space are perceptions, right? And that like how I see life is quite literally how I see it.
Oh my God.
So it doesn't make it right or wrong, right? It's literally just how I have this beautiful glass of water. I think it's beautiful. You may not.
Exactly.
You may see chinks and smudges that I don't even notice, but it's the same glass. So really understanding that, I think, has been the best thing for me.
Well, I think it also feeds motivations. Wouldn't you agree? Because when you think about, if you were going under the belief that somebody else's decision impacts your ability to accomplish your dreams, your desires, right? A lot of times people do believe that it's external, instead of saying that, no, that person was supposed to say no to push me along my journey, because there's somebody else that is waiting for me, because they have the answer for what I need at this particular stage of the journey. But if I'm not motivated to continue, then I'll stop the first time I hit, tailwinds, or the first time I think that I'm experiencing rejection, or as many people inappropriately define failure, the first time they think they failed at something, when it's like, no, you just discovered something that either didn't work the way you applied it or didn't work for you at this
I
moment.
am I am a rehabilitating perfectionist. So I definitely, and I say that with wholeheartedness. Like it's a daily journey and a daily struggle for me. There are some days that I understand that my anxiety is what's driving me to do things or to not do things. My fear of it not being just perfect, and therefore me being a failure. And so having to combat that every day, and sometimes several times in a day, right? Like when things go wrong, my first instinct is that I'm a failure. That's the first instinct, because I've had 40 something years of practice thinking that. And so to be able to stop and reevaluate and relook at things and saying, okay, is that what you're seeing, or is that how you're feeling?
Very, very important, because,
Because they're different.
Total difference.
They rarely are the same thing.
Absolutely.
I make dinner and my family eats it. In my head, oh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, it's a little too salty, something I should have cooked it. I have all this failure, and my family is like, tastes great to me, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? So what am I seeing? Am I seeing the facts in front of me, or am I feeling?
It's a narrative, and that's why mindset is so critical, right? Because it's dependent upon the messages that you're feeding yourself based upon the beliefs. And sometimes, an earlier word that you used, the trauma, the emotional trauma, most people are behaving from their place of emotional trauma without even recognizing that the trauma is what then is influencing whether they think of something as an experience, or they define it as some type of judgment. It's a failure. It's like, no, it's not. It's just an experience. I don't know if you've ever done like Landmark, or if you've ever studied A Course in Miracles, a lot of these particular modalities that really deal with looking at, what you're thinking. Years back, I did Landmark. And what I love about Landmark is the first thing that they distinguish is something happened. So like, we're standing at the corner and we see a car accident. There was a car accident, but that's the fact of what happened. Depending upon what angle to that corner, your focus, your lens, 20 people standing around all saw something different. And if they started to define the why, they made it mean something. Oh, that person was wrong. Oh, that person did this. And it's like, we don't know if any of that's true, but going through their individual filters, that's what they're coming out. But that doesn't make it true. That's just that person's filter and how they then process that experience. The fact is, there was a car accident.
Right. That's the only thing. I use yoga to kind of really help me key into what I'm feeling, and so that I can distinguish between what I'm feeling and what is real. Right. So in my practice, my concentration is on the sensations I'm feeling in my body in response to thoughts that are happening in my head. So if I'm on the floor and it's been a trying day and the thoughts in my head are, here are all the ways that you could have done things better. How am I feeling that in my body? I may feel it through sweaty palms. I may feel it through butterflies in my stomach. I may feel it through a racing heartbeat. So now I have these concrete physical sensations that I can identify, I can touch, and then I can change them by using my breath. I can send my breath to help calm my heart. I can send my breath to help lessen the sweat in my palms. I can send my breath to help calm down those butterflies. And in that calming down, I can begin to understand that the thoughts in my head are just thoughts and they are not me. They are how I perceive what was going on in my life. They are not me. They don't reflect me. I am the person, the spirit observing the thoughts, not the actual thoughts. And once I really, really began to understand that, it allows me to feel like I have more control, right? Because I know I do. It's not a pretend thing. It's like, no, you really do have control. You are this spirit that is watching all of this go on. So how do you want to respond? How do you want to react? How do you want your body to feel? You can control that.
Absolutely.
You can be in a high stress situation and not have a panic attack.
It is. It's definitely by a choice. You know, it's so funny. I love that you shared about your yoga practice. I'm new to developing a yoga practice as well as meditation. I wasn't able to find myself able to be still long enough to fully embrace a meditative practice until last year. I was sitting on the beach, 7 Mile Beach in Jamaica, and I went into a good 45-minute meditative state. And it was just life altering because I understood what people had said, you know, where you can go and just that feeling of peace. Also last year, I guess year before last was the first year that I did a course in miracle, which is a year-long course. Now I'm on my 3rd year going through the course. And what I've noticed is each year it evolves to something else, but it really is about this idea that separating, if you will, behavior from your being, you know, and setting the intentions. And so the things that I have a 15-year-old teenager as well. And so I was just speaking with him last night. We were preparing dinner and I was saying to him, well, it's not about perfection. None of us will ever be perfect, but we can all deliver excellence in whatever it is that we do. And we can deliver excellence because we're able to quantify and set a benchmark of what defines that particular excellence. And it doesn't mean that it's a fixed destination because we can always continue to move the marker on what further determines, you know, excellence, right? But you know, it doesn't take away from who you are as an individual. It's about the behavior that you choose to take on. And so just really wanting to give him this gift early along his journey. You know, it's the same conversation I have with my son Sterling, who's 26 now, is about the importance of separating behaviors, you know, from your beliefs and who you are. And so even setting the intention, because I told him, I said, you know, what I notice is every morning, if I stay in bed as soon as my alarm wakes up and allow myself a moment to set the intention for the day, that begins with reminding myself that I am whole, perfect, and complete because I was made that way. Right. And so just setting an intention that my day is going to be outstanding, right? Before I even let my feet hit the floor. And I noticed that hands down,
it makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. You're amazed.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you know, we do children a disservice because oftentimes we label their behavior as them.
Yes.
And so they take that into adulthood. And then when they become adults, we tell them, why are you doing that? Why are you connecting your behavior to who you are? It's not. But literally when I was 5, you told me I was bad. You literally told me I was bad because I did something wrong. And now at 30, you're telling me I shouldn't believe that I'm bad when I do something wrong.
Yeah.
But you didn't set me up.
Right.
To understand that. And so we have, you know, this whole generations of adults who are trying to undo those messages that we were given as children. You know, it's something that I try to tell my parents, and I definitely did with my daughter. I would distinguish your
Mhm.
behavior today was unacceptable.
Right.
You are always a wonderful person.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes your actions are deplorable.
And we can all have that. We can all have a bad
And we
day, you know?
And we can
That's
all
human.
have them. But it has nothing to do with who you are and your value as a person. So she understands she can make mistakes.
Yes. Yes. And isn't that a gift? Because I
It
think the
is.
second that we remove this ideal of perfection, then it really is freeing because truthfully, innovators, if you're an innovator, you cannot innovate if you have this idea that it has to be perfect. You will
Right.
not take risk. You
Right.
must take risks. You must be willing to break some things. You must be willing to figure out what doesn't work in order to get to what does.
Yep. And when we don't give that as the foundation as children, it's so much harder to learn it as an adult because you go back, and I'm a testimony to that. I go back to those youthful thoughts of, if it's not perfect, I'm a failure. I was a dancer, so like there was no room for mistakes, right? It was perfection or nothing. It was perfection or sit your ass down. Like there was no, oh, it's okay if you didn't get this step right. So then as an adult to learn that, like, yeah, actually you're gonna have to fall on your face in order to learn. Like, what? I don't want to fall. They told me not to fall. I don't want to fall on my face, please. I would rather just get it right. Um, but it stifles you.
It can absolutely, and I think that that's the importance. I it was Malcolm Gladwell that talked
Oh, I
about
love him.
10,000 hours,
Yes,
to
yes.
mastery, right? And I've used that as a benchmark over and over again because recently I graduated from law school, but I decided to go to law school after completing my doctorate. And it was really a tough decision for me because, doctoral level studies, are intense, and especially, single mom, kid, all of those things, right? But I had decided that if I didn't go into law school while I still had some of the student, constraints, right, then
Hmm.
I would never want to do it again. It's like
Hmm.
once I wanted to be done, but it meant that I went into a situation where I really was exhausted and found the rigor of the program. And then we had COVID and all these other things that I hadn't anticipated as major life altering experiences. At the end, I'm glad that I got through it, but I had to give myself a mental break and say to me when I started law school, hey, mama, you're back at zero. You don't have 10,000 hours here.
Yeah.
So don't let anybody else try to present to you an expectation that you should be at ground zero acting like you've already finished. You're just starting. Yes, over here, your DBA, that dissertation, all that is published and all of that is great. So you can feel good about that. Yes, you can. But it's okay to let yourself go, hey, now I'm in a whole new, I'm back at zero again. And I'm okay with that because I choose to be. But I found myself having to, you know, if you will, create boundaries
Hmm.
around who could say things to me, and project their things to my ears. You don't need to project you on. This is Stephanie for Stephanie. It has nothing
Right.
to do with you and me and the Almighty. When we talk about what's good for Stephanie, you're not on the call.
Your name is never mentioned. We not thinking about you.
You're not on the bench. You're not an advisor. You're not a contributor.
Yeah, yeah, for
Like,
sure.
yeah. And so that's why I think that you're right when you're dealing with, as we are responsible for young people. And that's why I think it's so critical that that awareness and that recognition that we're shaping the
Mhm.
foundation of the future for these future adults. and the trauma, or what they're going to equate as trauma,
Right.
starts oftentimes with how we frame or how we approach or how we address their experiences. So
Yep.
stop it.
Yep. Absolutely. Stop it. Stop it. Be what you wanted.
Yes. Yes.
Remember what it felt like to be a child, to be a teen, and what it is that you were needing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then, to the best of your ability, provide that.
And ask, right? Because my son Sterling will always say to me, Mom, I don't like when people talk at me. Talk to me.
Mhm.
I can tell you. I can tell you what I want. Just let me contribute to the conversation. And it's right, holding that space, and it sounds like that's definitely something that you've been able to do successfully as a mom. And then it looks like that's also something that you're able to share even in your practice in bringing forth and supporting families with new life. As usual, our time goes so fast. I always tell folks, it's like as soon as we get into the good conversation,
Chime in.
yes, but before we kind of conclude, just, kind of tell me in terms of your thoughts there, how do you see yourself as an influencer as you are also guiding the birthing process for other families?
So my whole goal with my postpartum work and my birth education work is to really let caregivers know that they already have the answers,
Mhm,
that they've just got to trust themselves,
mhm.
that all the mommy blogs and all the is noise. We have it. We own it. We know what to do. We just don't trust ourselves. And so my biggest thing is to always tell them your instincts are never wrong. It's your thoughts that can be wrong.
That's so powerful. I mean, that's literally about setting mindsets and setting them up to win. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So then I asked you about your mindset. We talked about some motivation. So, just in conclusion, what are some of the things that you would say have manifested kind of because of your process of thinking and beliefs, in addition to, how you show up in the world and contribute?
Yeah, I think really for me it's shown up more in my daughter than in my own personal life because I'm still so stuck, right? Like I still get stuck in those old ways. But the things that I have wished, thought about, concerted my efforts, focused my energy on with her are just coming true every day that I talk to her, from where she's at in school, from who she picks for her friends, from the things that are important to her. I know it's all because of her upbringing, her rearing, the dedication, the time, the effort, the energy that her father and I have put into her, knowing that she will be the absolute best of the both of us.
Absolutely. Oh my
Is
goodness.
my manifestation.
Oh my goodness. Well, Tiffany, we definitely have to catch up and have another conversation. I hope that your family and you will plan a trek to one of our wellness resorts around the world. So I'll definitely send you an invitation for our grand
Please
opening.
do.
And who knows, you may have to do a retreat and talk to some moms because again, a lot of times this is an area that families struggle, especially if you're a new parent. And you're uncertain, so you think you don't know how to do anything right.
Mhm.
Suddenly, this baby is this big,
Right, right. Who let me in charge?
and you're so worried that you're going to break it somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so yeah, so wonderful. Well, I have your website, but how should anyone that wants to get in contact with you? Is it best to go to the website or should they
You can
call
go to
you?
the website. I'm on Instagram at TJG Writes because I am a writer as well. That's what I do first and foremost. So you can catch me on Instagram, on TikTok, on the Facebooks, all of those, all TJG Writes.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to catching up again, and say hello to the family, and we'll be in contact.
Will do. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. We'll be in contact.
All right. Peace.
Bye-bye. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me again for another episode of Naked with Dr. Money. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey. I hope you'll join me again next week. If it's Wednesday, noon Pacific, it's Naked with Dr. Money. So take care of yourself, hug you, and be ready for a new chapter. Chapter 24. We're just getting started. So set all those intentions and make sure that you have the appropriate mindset to support your motivations so that you can realize your manifestations. And until next week, be good to you, and I'll see you then. All right. Take care.